And now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the IMAX RANT. Andy, take it away.
That's perfect because you're triggering me.
Welcome back, everybody. We are the Alter Ego Brothers. I'm Nick. You know what? We know why you're here. You saw the title. You've already clicked on it. We know what's going on. Just like and subscribe and we'll get on to it.
I'm Andy, by the way.
Don't listen to him. This week, we saw Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. And without mincing words, it's a 10 out of 10.
I mean, it's an automatic 10 out of 10. I mean, you go into it knowing that. You don't really even judge it for that anymore.
Yep. So this week is going to be a little bit different. I want to kind of break down what's going on in this movie. The Odyssey is one of my favorite stories ever. I read it when I was in middle school, went through a huge Greek and Roman mythology phase. I do have some thoughts. Overall, I am very pleased with what Christopher Nolan did. However, he did it in his own Christopher Nolan way, and that's not exactly what the source material is about, but I think the way in which he went about it was really good. If I were to really dock at any points, it would have been in the pacing, because out of any of the projects that he's done, I really do think that this needed to be a two-parter. And I kind of get the feeling from Christopher Nolan that he was a little bit more interested in the Iliad/Aeneid part of the story, which he incorporated very heavily into the Odyssey. And I think it would have just given everything a little bit more breathing room. However, the changes that he made all made sense within his own telling of the story. So +1 for that one. It evened out.
What's the topic right now? What are we talking about?
We're talking about... I'll be honest, okay, guys? This was the loudest movie I've ever seen by far. There's no competition in how loud this fucking movie is. So if you haven't seen it yet, be forewarned. It's fucking loud.
I have several things that I'll just discuss generally, but then I think we'll get into specifics here. By the way, don't go to an IMAX, skip the marketing, go to Adobe, because holy shit, are you a part of the movie and Adobe experience? My chair was shaking the hardest it's ever shook, ever, almost the entirety of the movie. I'm like, what the hell? That was so fun. I had 3 questions going into this movie, though. One, my most important question, I was so curious with Ludwig Goransson, like I think 4-time Oscar winner, like what is he gonna do for the Siren song? The number 2 thing was, there is so much to this story. I don't know how to tell it all in one movie. And given the length, I was like, I'm pretty sure he's going to try, although I thought it might be a 2-parter. And the 3rd thing was Matt Damon. I was skeptical of Matt Damon going into this, and I was very curious how he was going to perform and convince me of his portrayal of
Odysseus.
Of Odysseus. I was going to say of the Odyssey. I'm like, that's not it. So those are my big things, and I will get into specifics in a moment.
So to just bounce off of that, what did you know going into this movie?
I think any interview you saw trying to hype it up only ever fucking talked about the goddamn IMAX camera. And they never talked about the fucking story. Drove me nuts, by the way. I knew very little about the Odyssey prior to about a couple hours before, where I watched a 25-minute video on what the Odyssey was, because I was like, I can't quite remember, and it jumps all over the place. And so it helped keep me in line and keep me on track chronologically. I was waiting for certain moments to actually hit that I know are very distinct in the story that didn't happen in the movie, and I'm not sure why. I'm sure if you ask Christopher Nolan, he would say, well, I tried, it just didn't work. That's what he always says. I don't think he tried. I think he just had his own interpretation. It did a really good job of portraying the story, but there were still certain moments that I thought he should have hit that he didn't.
In Nolan's portrayal of the Odyssey, which I'm going to use that term because it is very much his interpretation of the Odyssey and not the story of the Odyssey as if you were to research it. So do not go writing any papers based off of this movie. You will fail. It is not the same whatsoever. Be forewarned. So in Nolan's version of the Odyssey, he is very much focused on the human aspect. Surprise to no one. That's kind of his bag. He incorporates a lot of the Trojan War into the Odyssey. And if you know anything about the Trojan War, the actual poem that encapsulates everything that happened there is called the Iliad or the Aeneid, depending on which version you're reading. That has to do with Agamemnon and Achilles and Paris and Helen, and it focuses very much on the actual battle. And depending on which one you're reading, you're gonna read the Troy side of things or the Greek side of things. This movie dives into the Greek side of things, how Odysseus felt going into the Trojan horse and how he felt betraying Athena, who was the patron goddess of Troy, just kind of breaking the world is what they called it, is what Nolan termed it. That's a big change. First off, Apollo is the patron of Troy, which ties into the whole cows at the end. They're Apollo's cows. He's the sun god. Second, Athena is all for Odysseus' plan. She thinks that he is one of the most trickiest, smartest mortals that there is, and she is like,
Go ahead and do it.
His men are fucking stupid. They end up trashing her temple. She gets a little pissed, but is never like haunting him like she is in this movie. I think Nolan did a good job of twisting that to his own points, trying to ground it more into the real, and he just kind of blazes through a lot of the mythos behind this story, which is what I was a little bit afraid of coming from him. He doesn't like to focus on the magical. You do see Polyphemus, you do see Charybdis, you do see Scylla, you do see the sirens, but they really get you to imagine. And so when people think of the Odyssey, they think of these moments. He just kind of breezes by them in like 5 to 10 minutes tops. And it's like, okay, whatever. But he really brought home the point about Zeus's law, right? That is a pure Nolan thing. Yes, they did have traditions where they treated guests kindly. On the flip side, there was an expectation that the guests would not just straight up take advantage of them. But in Nolan's version of this, they're kind of just kicking down the door and being like, oh, Zeus's law, give me all your shit, Zeus's law, blah, blah, blah. And they're just taking everything, and it's, whatever. I could go on and on and on. If you have any questions, put them in the comments.
So overall, I don't think that this is Nolan's best work. I think he has better works than this. And I would say the same thing for Ludwig Goransson too. I don't think this was his best music, although it is still really cool stuff. But what it boiled down to me is like at the end of the day, he did tell Odysseus' story. And he did hit a lot of the main marks that you're supposed to hit telling this story. And I thought his way of modernizing it by starting off with the ending of the story as this kind of prelude and then seamlessly transferring to the beginning of the story and walking you through all that just to bring you back to modern times and have it all go full circle. It's a very Christopher Nolan thing to do. He likes that full circle, and it's a very modern way of telling stories. And so I think it was a good way to take a modern audience and tell a 3,000-year-old story. Every aspect was nailed very well, and compared to most movies, it's fantastic. Compared to the actual book, the actual story, a two-parter could really allow you to be in that cave a bit longer. It could have allowed you to sail past that whirlpool at Charybdis with the five-headed dragon, right? That moment is one of like the most standout moments in the story to me. The Cyclops and that are like the top two. And we breezed past that shit. Breezed past it. We sailed past that whirlpool like it was barely even there, like it must have been the wind. The dragon thing, I don't know what fucking design or creature they came up with, but that was horrendously bad. It's almost like they used leftover of the Cyclops puppet to do
right,
that, to save money. Again, that's just being nitpicky, because anyone who doesn't know the story, which is like 99% of the audience going to see this, they're being told the story for the first time. The story is told well. So there's still a thing that came and grabbed a couple of the men, yada yada. So yeah.
The changes that Nolan made sense for the story that he wanted to tell.
This is the first time I now understand why book nerds always get so annoyed with the movie adaptations of their stories, because it's missing these details that are super important and whatnot. Yet anyone who watches the film who didn't read the book absolutely loves it. And that's the same thing here too.
I actually told Kylie that when I got back. I was like, I finally get to be that person who's like, well, I read the book and it's so yeah, it was really fun. Quick shout out to Robert Pattinson though. The scene where all like the weapons are falling from the ceiling and stuff, and he's like, the spears, get the spears, and he's hiding behind. I was dying. I thought he was fucking hilarious, dude. It was so good.
It reminds me of Reek from Game of Thrones.
I thought everybody, like I said before, was perfect. I wanted to see more of these side characters. We didn't really spend a whole lot of time with Menelaus or Helen. We didn't spend a whole lot of time with Athena, really. Like, I don't think Zendaya really had much to do in the movie. Calypso and Cersei, specifically, are two very big characters within the story that are kind of just brushed off.
So standouts for casting, Samantha Morgan, Robert Pattinson, and then I'm going to put Anne Hathaway on that list. Everyone else I actually thought was subpar. Hear me out, because I do like Nolan's approach by putting all of these A-list actors on here, because this is a story about gods, you know, and in our modern society, we can view A-list actors as like the gods of our society too. That's kind of my symbolism interpretation there. So I actually really liked that choice. Plus, I would imagine, given how difficult it is to shoot this film and all that stuff, you need the top people because you don't have time to do different takes and whatnot. I'm actually going to throw in John Bernthal in this too. I normally don't like John Bernthal, but I actually really liked him in this film. I'm going to put him at number 2, possibly number 1 with Samantha Morgan. That's my order. Matt Damon, I was really worried about him because I feel like he's more of a B-list actor, and I think he's very one-dimensional. I think every film I see him in, he portrays the same characters, same mannerisms, everything, just really calm voice, just really doesn't get crazy loud or crazy mad or crazy sad. Like, and he doesn't express those emotions at like enough of a spectrum for me to consider him like this A-list actor. And I really felt that here. I just felt like no matter what they went through in the Odyssey, his expression, his emotion in those moments didn't really capture what was actually happening around him. I did not like his performance. I don't think he's going to win an Oscar. Normally, if you're in a Nolan movie, that's an automatic. But I think he lost his opportunity there. Because even during the sirens, and we're going to get into the music part here later too, where he's tied up and he's supposed to be obsessed with this music. It is supposed to drive you absolutely crazy. And he wobbled and whatnot, but like part of him was tied. Like he should be legs kicking, head bobbing. He was like barely moving. I'm like, it doesn't really look like you're totally obsessed and really trying to break free of those ropes at all.
Right.
That moment that really officially just sealed the deal for me, that said that he underperformed in this role, and there were too many side characters that outperformed him, and that's embarrassing.
So Ludwig doing the music again. I think that there are very distinct areas in where the music worked and where the music didn't. The siren section is a spot that didn't work for me. It was very muffled, right? Because all the men have beeswax in their ear. I feel like it wasn't muffled enough. I feel like we were still hearing Odysseus scream. We were still hearing the commands to row. We were still hearing a bunch of extra stuff, but we didn't hear the siren song at that point. Like, it was a little confusing. I feel like it should have been like what we would expect from a space scene where it's just dead silent. And I would have liked to have my own imagination kind of fill in what that would have been.
Yeah, they essentially... What's really cool about Ludwig's approach to this that I've learned is that it's almost the counter to what he did in Oppenheimer. In Oppenheimer, he really focused on strings and like basically almost no percussion. It was the exact opposite in here. I really like the idea of trying to use instruments related to that time. I think that's always a good idea, or related to that region. But it needed more of a theme. And I got to a point where I was getting music fatigued from Ludwig Goransson stuff. And no matter what we're facing, it just felt like the music was always the exact same every single time.
I think he kind of just let himself down in that regard. Like it just wasn't very exciting. There wasn't anything that was super stand out until that end bowstring pluck. But that's kind of the movie itself, though. It's kind of all rushed together, and then you get to this last part of the movie, and unlike a lot of movies that really rush endings, I thought this one was really perfect in many different ways, where they really nailed the ending, but kind of rushed through the rest of it.
I know Nolan also has mentioned that he views music as part of the sound effects, not necessarily music on top of the whole thing. And that, I think that's very much true to this, especially when you talk about the bow thing. I actually think that was a wrong choice to have the bow make that dong sound, because they did that from the very beginning. I was like, that kind of sounds cheesy and corny to go like, dude, that doesn't seem very Christopher. Normally he's very authentic, so you're going to hear the sound of the actual bow. And then you shoot an arrow and you hear the like the high pitched flying noises. I'm like, really? We're fucking shooting lasers now all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Like, this is so not Christopher Nolan. It just felt like, I don't know how to put it into words other than I just feel like no one really truly brought their full A game to this film.
All in all, the whole thing considered, it's still by and large a 10 out of 10. However, it's not as strong of a 10 out of 10 as I would have hoped, and I think as you would have hoped.
I don't know, man. Like, I was thinking like how I rank these Nolan movies. I'm like, he's done 13. Maybe it lands at like 10 or 9 for me. Like, normally I don't listen to all these interviews and stuff because I like to avoid any sort of spoilers, but I listened to some on this one because I was genuinely curious. But this was with Jon Stewart. Jon asked him, like, why the Odyssey and why now? Nolan's response was, well, because of Oppenheimer and the success that it had, that was my opportunity to pitch something like this and get it approved. To which Jon then replied, like, you're telling me, like, you, Christopher Nolan, have a hard time pitching movies, like they could get rejected for whatever reason? And I do wonder, maybe it was hard enough to pitch the Odyssey that it would be impossible for him to pitch. Maybe he did have the idea of a two-parter. And just and because I would have loved to see him do the Iliad and then go into the Odyssey and just take us through the journey, make it a 4-part series or whatever. It would have been truly epic, but now we're left a little bit short. That's my theory.
Part of that too, within that pitch, he's got to nail in his baby, right? And I want to shoot it all in IMAX because fuck it, nobody's done that. I think that's a big weight, a big anchor around all of his movies, because that is a huge amount of money that's just wasted on the film itself. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the IMAX RANT. Andy, take it away.
That's perfect because you're triggering me. First of all, we've said it many times on this channel. IMAX is a total ripoff. It's a joke. It's a 30-year-old technology. They've made no innovation since. It took Christopher Nolan having to make, $1 billion grossing movies, X many Oscars, all of these deals, for him to still beg to IMAX to be like, please do something so I can just bring in the camera closer. To which IMAX said, here's our solution. We wrapped it in a mattress. Good luck, buddy. They made the thing huge, 3 times bigger, 5 times heavier, and they had to lug that shit up mountains and shit every day for 3 months. That's where IMAX is. And when you talk about normal IMAX screen versus 70 millimeter, I am telling you, as somebody, I missed my opportunity for 70 millimeter. I don't want to go into that. But I've seen the images, and when you look at and you can look at the numbers online too, like the amount of screen real estate that you get is next to nothing. It's not noticeable. There's nothing on that very edge that's super important that only the people who saw it in 70 millimeter IMAX are ever going to see, because the only time people see it in 70 millimeter IMAX is right now. And that's it forever. It's right now for the next month, maybe month and a half. Maybe they do a re-release in 10 years for a week, but that's it. It's nothing other than that. It's normal screens. And when I was saying earlier, we were at the Dolby, I compared the difference, and it's minuscule. It's basically not there at all. The other part of the IMAX is that it's the most realistic, true, like, capture of an image that you can possibly get. And to an extent that's true because it captures light directly versus like most digital screens have pixels, right? So everything's on a grid. So what if there's something in between those two pixels? If you're looking at your TV screen or monitor, whatever it is right now, there's like 8 million pixels on your screen right now. Tell me that you notice the detail between one and the other pixel on when you got 8 million. You don't. Your eyes don't capture that. And like, so technically true, but so fucking useless. So the cost. Globally this weekend, the Odyssey pulled in $264 million. That's really, really good. IMAX specifically pulled in $52 million of that 264. IMAX specifically, the thing they keep marketing, pulled in 20% of the actual revenue. Of all the IMAX theaters, 2.2% of them are actually true 70 millimeter IMAX theaters. That means out of the $264 million that this movie brought in, all of that effort, all of that lugging around, the mattress, the re-innovation, the whole marketing behind IMAX and what 70 millimeter brings to the screen to get like a couple more pixels, they brought in a whopping $1.1 million this box office weekend. But that's not the point here. The point is 70 millimeter IMAXs show normal movies all the time anyway. So a lot of people just naturally go to those theaters. So what did the marketing of it being fully 70 millimeter, what new audiences came over to watch the 70 millimeter specifically? 70 millimeter is like $10 more tickets, like $30 a ticket. Okay, so let's look at these numbers. $1.1 million, assuming $30 a ticket, you end up getting 36,000 tickets. 36,000 divided by the 41 theaters is then 878 tickets per theater this box office weekend. I'm just saying you show it 8 times. You show it 8 times, which this starts from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you showed it 8 times, that averages it to be 111 tickets per showing. The 70 millimeter IMAX theater in Irvine, California, the one nearest me, seats 300 people. And on average, out of 8 showings, which is gonna be less than what they actually did, you average a third of those seats being taken up, 2/3 empty. And it's probably more than that. So tell me again why you need to invest in this 70 millimeter, why you need to go to the trouble of reloading the film every 3 minutes, and why you spend so much time and money on this, because it didn't bring you jack shit for revenue. You lost money on that deal.
But Andy, couldn't they possibly take some of the money from this movie and reinvest to bring more 70 millimeter theaters to the country?
No, IMAX clearly doesn't want to do that. They don't care. They understand that it's not cost effective. It's not worth it, especially for these giant machines, and they're not wanting to invent a better machine to have these close-ups, which, by the way, even though they're able to get these close-ups and get closer to the face so that you can hear the dialogue because the thing sounds like a fucking generator. 2026 and we got a camera that sounds like a goddamn generator. We get close up, they still had to use mirrors and still be separate from each other because we still couldn't actually get like everyone in. If you notice in the film, anytime they get close up to people and they're having a dialogue facing each other, you never see them facing each other on the screen looking at each other. It's cut to this person, cut to this person, cut to this person. And it was very separated. And at times too, you could tell like, you're not really looking at him. The angle's not quite right here. It didn't work for me. Like I noticed it, the normal audience is not gonna notice it, but I noticed it. That didn't even work. So the whole thing doesn't even work. And let me tell you, the other marketing thing was they had 2 million feet of film to go through. And they act like, wow, that's crazy. That's really, really cool. No, that fucking sucks for every single person that has to piece all that shit together, edit all of that shit together. 2 million feet. And what you can't even perceive 2 million feet, so I don't know why the fuck they even say it like that. So let's talk about that. What is 2 million feet? Well, there's 5,280 feet in a mile. So that means there are 378 miles of this film. Let's put it into another perspective. If you were to drive on a road 378 miles at 60 miles an hour, it will take you over 6 hours to reach the beginning of the tape to the end of the tape. Imagine driving 6 hours and you just see film that whole length. People have to fucking deal with that and work with that shit. So how much cost went into producing and putting the 70 millimeter film together when you can't even fill 2/3 of the seats in these theaters? It's so fucking dumb. Go to Adobe. That's my rant.
There's got to be a better way.
There's a better way. It's digital.
If they really wanted to keep using film in that way, then they could have and definitely should have developed new technology for the film itself.
It's all a marketing play. Whenever you hear out, even like centers, they're saying like, oh, it's best in IMAX. Then you go to Dolby Theater and the preview before the Dolby Theater is the same Ryan Coogler up there saying, oh, it's designed for Dolby. It's best in Dolby. It's all marketing. The reason they market IMAX is because they upcharge you because they trick you to thinking it's a better showing so that they get more money, and that's how you hit $264 million in the box office. Because at the end of the day, they're just trying to make money and they're salespeople and you're falling for it. That's the end of my rant.
One of the things that they did for the 70 millimeter was that they gave people cells of the film itself. How valuable is the film if you're offering it to people as an incentive to come to your theater to watch it, right?
Literally just thought about that.
I don't really think anybody's missing much. It's just a fake FOMO thing that most people have gotten over. And with that, we will bid you adieu. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, we're just two regular dudes
doing regular reviews.
Weird tidbit, but somebody said this and I can't not think about it now, is that the most correct interpretation of the Odyssey that we've had to date is the very first SpongeBob movie.